Here's a training video for customers with our domiciliary care document management system. If you type in your username and password as usual, we're going to log into our system here, and we're going into our domiciliary care. This is our master system. You'll have your own bespoke site, I would presume at this stage, with your company name on. This is showing you around the master system site, but the principles are still the same and the folders are still the same. So the first 4 folders happen to be. So then, if you remember, our folder number 1 is all of our cared for documents. If I expand out here, we have procedures, forms and policies. They're the main documents in there, and that is what I'm going to focus on now. I have a separate video on the key lines of inquiry and how that works, but this video is just around our folder number 1. Separate video as well on domiciliary care registration, but for those who have the system, it's folder number 1 that will be their focus from here on in. Let me just open up folder number 1, and the first thing I'm going to open is the procedures. This is a task orientated approach. There is confusion between procedures and policies. Procedures, tasks, policies, organisational statements around whether that be safeguarding, risk management, fire safety. Let me open the procedures anyway, and as we expand that out, we use this little triangle here which just expands and collapses. We've organised our procedures into management arrangements, people management, service delivery, personal care, practical care tasks and continuous improvement. I'll open up the index and you'll see these sections here listed in the index. And here we are, management arrangements, and I'm not going to read all of these titles for you, but what I would like to do is highlight some of the documents that I think impact your service nearly every day, like health and safety, infection control, confidentiality and access to records. And if you just read down as I'm just talking on this video, then you'll see, obviously you're reading the other titles too. Reporting abuse and prevention and protection from abuse. And then going into MA14, staffing rotas. Next section, people management. Now this is more of your HR type documents, and our titles here: recruitment. We would check qualifications, we would carry out a staff induction and probation, we would have a staff training program, and then we would do 6 supervisions and appraisal each year. And I think they're the core documents there in people management. Service delivery, assessment planning and reviews, and I'm just going to highlight a couple in here. Complaints I like to highlight, and risk management. And then we're getting into what I call our on the ground procedures, the things your staff are doing every day. Maybe they're helping people up in the morning and to bed and with hygiene, etc. And practical things your staff might do. They may do a bit of shopping, for instance, or they may be preparing a meal. And obviously there are other procedures around there. Because the Care Quality Commission and the local authority contracts people looking for continuous improvement, we have a whole section on here, and what I'd like to highlight here is audits and involving people in the running of the service, which is these 2 procedures here. So let me just open some of the documents for you, and if we look at the accident procedure, it's in the management arrangements section, it's MEO2, and I'm just going to minimize that now. So we're in management arrangements, and it's still simple, isn't it, from the index: accident, incident, near miss procedure, and this is what it opens up like. And what we do is we get a procedure that is structured. There are 80 procedures, everyone has a scope and aims and values, and tells you who's responsible. Here we have forms in the procedure, DC, and as we go through the procedure, it tells us what documents to record on. I've just highlighted forms 1 and 9 there, DC 001 and DC 009, and as we read through the procedure, you will see those referenced in the text and where you should use them. and I'm going to show you how to locate them in a minute. There's form number 9, reference to, and here is form number 1, reference to, and so on. So let me just shut that document down, and if it's personal care, back to our index, let's have a look at hygiene, which is PC03. So from the index I'm going to look for PC03, and just to navigate around now, personal care is here, and this is the procedure here. And again, when we open that document up, we get that same structure, that same scope, aims and values. Obviously the contents is different, but the structure remains the same, and our reference documents here. So what we did was we looked at an accident procedure, and we looked at forms 109 in text. So I'm going to cover those two things now. I'm just going to take this down now and just go back to our basic folders in procedures. So this is where we've been, and now I'm moving into the forms. Here we have forms. We looked at forms 1 and 9, if you remember. So let me look at the forms and forms folder. Forms 1 to 9, well, we group our forms into 20, so they have to be in this first folder here. And we're referenced to, in that accident procedure, the accident form and the communication record sheet. And now we can open those documents from here. As we've read them in the reference in the procedures, we've now located the document and opened it, and now we can see what it looks like. Dead straightforward it is. But maybe you don't want to look at the procedure, and maybe you want to just think, oh right, I'll just have a search around for things, and you're able to do that. Also, if we go along the top here, we've got to do, navigator, dashboard and search. So if I go into search now and type in accident, because we know that there's a procedure or an accident in the system, and what this is doing is picking this keyword up in the title of a document. So anything with that word in the title of a policy or a procedure and a form, that will appear down the bottom left here when I press this little magnifying icon. And there we are. That was with procedure, by the way. You're able to open that up from here. You can see the little hand icon. And here's our form here, which was referenced to in a procedure, and we located it in the forms. And now you can open that up from here if you wanted to also. So dead easy. But back to search now. We're just here, back to search. And it might be what's on safeguarding in this system, for instance. So you may not have any idea where the documents live or are located, but you want to use that keyword to pick it up in the title, safeguarding. And there we have ME07, it happens to be a procedure, safeguarding people of use, and QP, which means quality policy, by the way, so that is a policy on safeguarding also. One more that I do is risk. Now you might think, oh, there must be some risk assessment forms here. So again, we will type in our search. DCs are forms, general risk assessment, moving and handling, property, falls, etc., and over the page too. And what you will find is that the care plan has most of these risk assessments incorporated into it anyway. Now we're back into Navigator, which happens to be our home page. So Navigator, and that also appears on this drop down menu too. And we were in folder number 1, and there are policies in this system. So obviously it's in this folder, forms, files, policies. So let's just look at policies now, and we will just slowly scroll through those. And what we did was we made a search for the safeguarding policy. So I'm going to scroll down to safeguarding policy, which is here, and we have a standard approach also to policies. So we've made the search for the document, and now we're looking at it manually in the folder. And our policies always have an introduction. They tell you what the policy is about, and then they begin to describe within their respective sections what the statement is around this particular area and how you're addressing that. Now just quickly, I do have a separate video on this, but I'm going to go now back to our basic folders. Pressing navigator resets everything, by the way. So in terms of the key lines of inquiry, a lot of people say, well, can you show me directly how we're complying to the legislation through our documents? What we did was, so we're in this folder 3.0 now, we were in 1.0, so we just moved down a little bit. We took every single key line of inquiry, which happens to be here, listed here. These are what the CQC asks you within safe services and their respective subsections. And these are the questions that the CQC asks you down this left hand side here. And I'm just going to scroll through the different safe and its subsections, effective and caring. So we're not even halfway down here, we're just on to page 6 of 13. And what we do is we evidence to each individual key line of inquiry within a cared for document. So you can see down the right hand side now we have the titles of cared for documents, and I want to take this as an example. They're either policies or procedures, by the way. This happens to be a procedure. How are people protected from discrimination which might amount to abuse or cause psychological harm? This includes harassment and discrimination in relation to the protected characteristics under the Equality Act. Well, you'll find a statement of evidence that will describe how your service is meeting that key line of inquiry within MA07. Now, let me just recap. We know we're in SAFE. We know we're in S1. We've read that key line of inquiry, and it's telling us that MA07 contains the evidence of what our service should be doing as a statement. So then, I'm going to go back online and look for safe services and look for MA07 in the safe services folder. So we're minimizing that. There's your safe services folder within our key lines of inquiry folder. Let me find MA07 in here, and we're nearly finished now. Just opening that up now. Straight away now, this document tells us that there's evidence to the key lines of inquiry. When we go to the back, we find a section called Guidance for Managers. And what we've just read was S1.3, if you remember. How are people protected from discrimination which might amount to abuse or cause psychological harm? This includes harassment and discrimination in relation to the protected characteristics under the Equality Act. Well, what we're saying is evidence of what your service should be doing is in point 6.2 and 6.7 of this procedure. So let me go back to up to the top of the procedure to 6.2, and I think at this stage I'm going to just split screen, if I may, what we've just read. What we've just read was in SAFE was that key line of inquiry. We located the document in the folder. We looked at the corresponding key line of inquiry at the back of the document, which was there. And then it's pointing to 6.2 and 6.7 in the procedure. And here we are. And what we're seeing now with the key line of inquiry over here, and you can see to the evidence, is that as part of the staff induction, staff will be made aware of discrimination which might amount to discriminatory abuse or cause psychological harm. This includes discrimination on the grounds of age, disability, gender, gender identity, race, religion, belief or sexual orientation. And it was 6.7, if you remember. Evidence statement to that: all staff should receive training on the different forms of abuse and be equipped to recognise the signs of abuse that may have taken place. This includes a lack of dignity and respect which can cause psychological harm. And what I've just shown you is something that you can use in your inspections in the future, because whichever key line of inquiry in whichever section, whether that's safe, effective, caring, responsive or well-led sections and their respective key lines of inquiry, whichever one the inspector asks you, you can go and use this system of locating the evidence to the document in the folder online, and then allowing the inspector to read your evidence statement and your intention of your services, what you're doing to meet that in key line of inquiry. Have that on your screen or have it printed off. It's as easy as that. And I think that's what we do try and aim for at Bettal, is to give you the maximum amount of assistance possible, because it is so difficult running a care service at the moment, and if we can make things easy but accessible at the same time, but with immense detail, then we believe that we have done our job on your behalf. So that ends this video for now, and thank you.